Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing this lovely Saturday? We know it's a little bit rainy, but it is still an amazing day. And I'm super excited to come to you a little bit later this weekend, but still daylight, still an awesome weekend. And my guest today is someone who automatically brightens any room she's in. And I kind of love that about her. Her name is Camy Kennedy, and she is a coach. And the thing about Camy is her limit is not like to one specific area, and that's what I enjoy about her, and I cannot wait for her to share that with you guys. So I'm not going to delay it any further. We're going to go ahead and bring Camy in so that you guys get to learn a little bit about who she is and what she does, and also about how she adjusted and pivoted in this phase of COVID. Because as you guys know, every week I bring on a small business owner, entrepreneur, woman in business, and try to highlight how they're adjusting to everything that's been happening lately. And Camy is a perfect example of that, and she's going to share with you how and why. Hey, Camy.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on today.
No problem. I knew I had to have you on. I think it was the start of the month when you joined us for Monday Motivation over on WBC Faye, and you were saying how you had to adjust a program that you had set up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to have her on. Like, why did I not think of this sooner? So that's definitely why. And I'm so glad you accepted. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I love it. I love talking about mindset. So this is the perfect time to talk about all things mindset, because that's what we're in the middle of right now.
Definitely. And it's definitely, mindset is very impactful on how you can adapt and adjust your business. Because if you don't have that mindset where you're focused, you're not going to see a new path. You're just going to stop and halt. And so that's what we're focusing on, and how so many of our business owners are doing that. And you just happen to be one of those people. I'm not even sure how we first met. I feel like it was when you hired me, like when you became a client, but you're kind of that person, like you feel like you already knew them. So it's just like weird to put your finger on when it happened. But just tell us a little bit about what Camy Kennedy Mindset Coach is and what it is that you do.
Sure. So I am a life coach and mindset coach that works with women high achievers and perfectionists to develop more self-love and to have breakthroughs in health, wealth, and love. So relationships, self-love, all of the things go together. And I started actually as a fitness coach and as a nutrition coach, and I realized we need so much more than just one area of our life. So I transitioned my business in 2018 into being fully a life coach and mindset coach.
Now, see, you left out a little bit of the story, because if you guys don't know Camy, she actually started even before her coaching passion happened. You have a background in like neuroscience, correct?
Yeah. So I went to school. I was pre-med. So I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. So I had a degree in molecular cell biology. And I've always been a nerd. Like, I was that kid in high school that I took like the advanced science classes. And I remember giving a presentation on neurogenesis in 10th grade. And basically neurogenesis is the ability for us to create new brain cells and new neural pathways in our brain. So this is something I've loved forever, and just understanding the way the brain works. And this mystery, you know, people always say we only use 5% of our brain, and this mystery of all the other percent of our potential that we can live into.
And let me tell you, it's amazing to see how she takes that knowledge from what she did before and applies it to what she does now. The first time, we're going to talk about a little bit before we get to how you adjusted and adapted and what you had to change. We brought you in maybe for our very first actually Monday Motivation, which was back in, I want to say, January. And it was so much fun because Camy is not the type of person who you just sit and talk and write notes and, okay, I'm just going to get this information. No, Camy gets you up. She gets you moving. She gets you refocused. And the way she did that during our Monday Motivation was through an exercise. And remind me what it was called.
Yeah. And you know, I can't even claim that I know what it's called, because I learned it from one of my friends who's a coach. She's a women's empowerment coach. And I just interviewed her last week, actually. But essentially what it is intention setting, and it's using the energy meridians in your body to shift your energy. So that's essentially what we did. And that's why everybody loved it, because I got them from sitting being kind of bored, when you're just like taking in information passively, you're not really engaged. So we get up, we set the intention, we show up with energy. And this is similar to something like Tony Robbins teaches, right? And I always say there's a different flavor for everybody, but I truly believe in the energy side of business and the energy side of everything. So I also integrate that into my teachings as well.
And you do it in such an amazing way. And I remember I was kind of on the camera duty for that day, and I was just watching everybody, and it was so amazing to see them get so engaged and to have that moment where they no longer felt like, okay, I'm here, I'm taking in information. And like you said, you had them actively involved. And then we brought you back for our most recent Monday Motivation, and you did it again, but you did it in a different way. And this time it was through meditation. So tell us how you walked that walk into the meditation route of things.
Yeah. So, and I always have to talk about the struggle, because I think can be challenging for people is they look and they're like, okay, yeah, that's good for you. Great. Because I just led a meditation today. I had a vision board workshop online. And one of the women who was giving feedback, she was like, I kept having these thoughts and these distractions. And I was telling her that's exactly what meditation is. And so what happens is we struggle with our thoughts, right? And then we feel so attached to the thought, we feel so attached to the emotion, and we feel like it's part of us, and we feel like it's the truth, and we feel like there's no other way. So by doing these modalities where you can start to step away, separate yourself from the thought, and realize, and I like to use this example, like I have this blue cup right beside me. If I can observe the blue cup, I start to realize I am not the blue cup. And that's the same way it is with our thoughts. We get so fused to them energetically that we can't figure out a way to pivot or be flexible or be creative, because we're so stuck on a thought of fear or insecurity or doubt or scarcity. And so stepping away through meditation or through some kind of energy work and just getting present and grounded into that inner self, that self that knows, you know what, you've always made it through no matter what, like something, there's always been a way, and just being open to that way being provided to you. And it may not look like you thought it was going to look, and just being open to however that's going to transform.
And that's so important and so key, because as entrepreneurs, a lot of us are creatives. Like it kind of comes as a package deal. And I think my very first interview was actually with Tiana from Cornerstone. And she said, like, when everything started with COVID, she was like, I completely froze. She was like, it was just like, I don't know what to do, and therefore I can't do anything moment. But then she pulled back, and she said she took 3 days to think out and to just like kind of woo-saw herself. And she was like, and she came back and she had a plan. And I was like, you know what? I do the same thing, maybe not the same exact way, but like I have to kind of step back from things for a bit and just be like, okay, this is not as serious as I'm probably feeling it is. And so when you led that meditation moment, and like we were sitting there, again, I was manning social media, so I couldn't focus completely. But even as I sat, and I have watched some of your meditations with Prima Elements, and we're going to talk about some of your collaborations and stuff, but I've watched them, and they literally, like, even the breathing techniques and how you just like refocus and recenter, it definitely helps in changing that mindset and helping you realize, okay, yes, I'm in the midst of this, but I don't have to be overcome by this.
Mm-hmm. And back to the science of that, there's a reason for that. So our bodies are adapted to respond to stress in a very acute way to get us away from the lion, the tiger, the bear, right? But now we live in a state of chronic stress, right? Because of what we're thinking. And our bodies are not adapted to that. So what happens is our breathing will get shallow, right? All of a sudden, we don't have this energy to think, because all of that energy is going to our muscles, and it's saying, you need to run, right? You need to run because a lion is chasing you, which we know theoretically, right, is not true. We know in our conscious mind it's not true, but that's the physiological response. So whatever you can do with your body to start to slow down the breathing, and that's one of the easiest things because it's free, right? You can just ground yourself, go outside, sit down actually on the ground, put your hand on your heart, slow your breath, start to just release, start to have some gratitude for, okay, I have breath in my lungs. Like I do have things. Because when we feel really scarce, we feel really scared, and we're not able to make really good decisions from that state.
Yeah. And then you were saying like you remind yourself like, okay, I can breathe or I can do this. And that's so key because I've had many moments where you kind of forget like, okay, I got this far and it's not, so it's not, I don't have the skill set. It's just you kind of go into a panic mode. And so speaking of that, we're going to like nice little segue over into how you did have to transition in the face of COVID. I know from watching you and just keeping an eye on kind of your page and stuff that you were planning an in-person retreat for women and then COVID happened. So tell us how your response and react situation went when that happened. Like what was your mindset and how did you adjust for it?
Well, I think the first thing, and I'm hearing this with a lot of my entrepreneur friends, is I had this intuitive feeling about the retreat initially. I'm just like, I don't know. Like I had this, I wasn't sure. It was booked for April 17th through 19th. And I just wasn't solid about it. So that was like my first indication potentially that like maybe something's going to shift and change. So I like to connect with that intuition, that knowing part of you who like knows that a change is supposed to happen or something. So I wasn't surprised, I guess you could say, because I had this gut feeling like that I didn't know if this was the right path or whatever. I was just following through with doing the retreat. And normally it's a 3-day retreat. And also, ironically, the last time I did this retreat, that was when 2 hurricanes came through and I had to move my retreat twice.
Oh my goodness.
So this is just like the story of this retreat, which to me is confirmation that the work I'm doing in the world is powerful, because I feel like anytime you're doing something good, you're on your way to church, you're on your way to help people, serve people, you know, you kind of get tests along the way. Because like I said, I believe in energy, and I sometimes believe sometimes bad things wants to block us, especially if we're doing good in the world. So I took that as my confirmation. And when it happened and I was like, okay, well, and I was being optimistic in the beginning, right? Of like, you know, it'll just be a small retreat. Well, I'm still planning on having it in person. And so I was reaching out to a couple of those participants. And then I finally realized like, this isn't going anywhere. We're not going to be able to meet in person. It would be irresponsible of me to do so. So maybe about a week or 2 out, I informed them, hey, I'm taking this virtual. I was able to cancel the venue without any repercussions. And I turned it into a 6-week online program, which then turned into an actual coach certification for other life coaches. So it kind of pushed me in that direction of, I've been working on this project. It's called Create, Believe, Conquer. I've been working on it for 7 years. I've been saying I'm going to turn it into a book. You know, I just started doing retreats a few years ago. And now within this year, I'm already going, okay, this was on my vision plan. I planned to do this, but now is the optimum time, because now I can support other health coaches and life coaches out there with a structure and a modality. So it ended up turning into a program, and also I'm writing a book, and also it's becoming a certification program.
And I think that's like amazing. First of all, kudos to you for adjusting, but then also moving forward on plans that you had. And I think a lot of us in the face of COVID, and I can speak this from my own experience as well, I had the same list of things that I planned to do. One was from like 2017. And I was just like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do this. This is so awesome. I had done all the research and it just kind of sat there because I kept replacing it with other stuff that I quote unquote had to do or had to get done. And then when COVID happened, I had extra time and I was like, okay, I might as well make this a reality. And I think there's been a lot of us who have done something similar. Like you had something on the back burner because life, and then COVID kind of, even though we know it's a tragic thing and like everything that's happening is so heavy right now, COVID kind of gave us all that pause to remember we don't have that much time all the time. So maybe we need to act on things. At least that's the way it impacted me. I was like, you know what? I don't have all the time in the world. So maybe I should just get this stuff done and stop saying I'll do it later, because later might not be there.
Yes, I completely agree. And I also want to address the fact that we have our up days and down days. And, you know, I just had 3 days earlier in this week because my husband just deployed. So there was like a weird adjustment with that. And so I definitely give myself grace where, you know, we're entrepreneurs, so we can kind of create our own schedules. And so now I'm learning to be okay with like creating my own schedule. Like last night or yesterday, I didn't work all day long, but I was on a 6-hour interview call with my friend in New Zealand and I was up until 1:30 in the morning. So I'm giving myself grace to be flexible and do things that are aligned now. So this has actually created this essence in me to trust. One of my values is energyuition, which is basically the combination between energy and intuition.
Okay.
Meaning I'm going to trust my inner guidance when somebody asks me on an interview, when somebody asks me to partner, when I start on a project. I'm going to trust my inner guidance of, is this something that actually is going to fulfill my vision and my values? Or is this something I'm just doing because I don't want to disappoint somebody, I don't want to let them down, or I said I would and then I actually decided I didn't? So it's helped me become more confident and in tune with my intuition, which is that internal voice. And we spend so much time in our heads. So that's what's transformed for me is if I don't feel like working that day, I just don't. And I know I don't want to like, I think routine is important, right? So if we go 3 months without working, it's going to be very hard to get back on track. But giving yourself a couple days to just not, right? To just not, or I started gardening, just to do whatever makes you feel good so that you can progress and get back on track in your business.
And that's definitely key. And I can attest to that because when we did the transition to remote working, it was not easy. And I was surprised it wasn't easy because I started my job at Seed after working at home. So I just thought, okay, well, I'm going back to working at home. It's not that big a deal. It was completely different. And I shared with Caitlin from WBC, like we both said we feel like we are working like 50 times more now because when you're home, you don't know how to turn it off. Like there's no, okay, see you guys tomorrow because you're literally still there. So like we were working almost around the clock. And then there got a point where we all just felt kind of fried. And we were like, okay, so I made a plan personally. I now work only in my office. Like that's how I adjusted things. I'm only in my office. I get up in the day as if it's a work day. I come up here, I do what I have to do, and then I literally say goodbye and clock myself out when it's time to clock out. And that's the only way I regained like that semi sense of normalcy, because other than that, I was just working completely nonstop and it wasn't okay. And I felt myself getting burned out and drained. And I had to give myself that grace, like you said, and just say, okay, listen, things need to change. I need to adjust slightly. And it's no negativity on myself. Because for a while I was like, come on, Tiffany, you should be able to handle this. And I was talking against myself. And then I had to catch it. And I was like, no, this isn't a normal situation. And you need to make a little bit of room for yourself for error almost just to get adjusted to it. So that moment of grace is so important as entrepreneurs, as women, as mothers. I mean, like when they added the whole homeschool thing in, oh my God, like I was like, I cannot, it's too much. So I love that you focus in on that, and all of what you do helps to teach people that it's okay not to be perfect. And I think when we first met each other as client, or however our situation, whatever you want to describe it as, but when we first met each other and you told me you were like a practicing perfectionist or something, I was like, wait, what? Like it was so interesting. And I had never heard it that way. So before I switch to you though, I do want to acknowledge Melissa, who is watching. Melissa,
hey, Melissa.
Cool. I know she's one of your clients. She said some of my favorite people. And she goes, yes, do give yourself grace. And yes, it is important to have limits and separate workspaces. Yes. And I love her workspace. She has her blog cabin and it is so stinking awesome. I'm a little bit jealous of it, but you definitely do have to learn how to separate those spaces and also keep your time separated. So like you have the time for family and then there's the time for work as well, especially now since most of us are at home and working. Yeah. But you've done all of this, and then I just want you to tell us a little bit about how you've gone from that perfectionist mode. Because I remember when we worked together, like you were like, I need it to be this way before I do anything. And I'm like, no, you don't. You like, you can just do it, or you can. So tell us your transition from being that I must do it this way to, okay, let me give myself a little room for error.
Yeah. So like I said, I started in fitness in 2013. I built my website, built it myself. I think I paid a couple people to like do it here and there. And it looked really great, but it was a fitness website. And when I transitioned into life coaching, I still had my fitness website up. And it felt very overwhelming for me to like take it on or to pay somebody to do it. And so I remember reaching out to you, and I was still doing life coaching without my website being perfect. But one of the things I teach is having a loop list. And that loop list is kind of like things that are dragging you down energetically And that was one of those things. So I finally reached out to you, Tiffany, because I was like, I need the accountability of somebody saying like, this needs to be done by this time, or I needed to commit and say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z by this time and get some kind of feedback. But to your question on perfectionism, when I first started off into fitness, I had really severe body dysmorphia, body image issues. I wanted to be a certain weight, a certain body fat. I was in the fitness competition space. So basically, my standard for what was good was you're on the cover of a magazine. So obviously that unrealistic expectation was making me always feel like a failure. So essentially how I've transformed my life in terms of body image, in terms of business, in terms of career, everything is shifting your perspective on success, because I've been a published fitness model. That was something that was on my vision board. But I wanted the fitness model because I wanted to feel a certain way about my body. I didn't actually need to be a published fitness model to be that person, right? So what I learned in that moment was when I got published, I was still dating this guy who was a jerk, let's just put it that way. And he like made a comment about like, oh, that was an old photo and you don't look like that now. And my point is, I didn't feel better about myself because I was a published fitness model, right? All of that stuff comes internally. And a lot of times what we do as high achievers, business owners, anybody who's in the entrepreneur space, I consider you a high achiever, right? Because we're already setting out to do something that most people aren't doing. So we tend to have this really high expectation of, I will be good enough when I have X amount of dollars in the bank, X amount of clients, when my website looks like this, when I wrote this amount of blogs or podcasts. And I have transitioned in coaching my clients and myself to, it's not about all the things you've done or the actual end achievement. It's about practicing what I call your potential. So who is that person who has that amount of money? Who is that person who is being interviewed by these top people on TV? Or who is this person who is speaking in front of 100,000 people? How can you practice being that person now and aligning your life and your feelings and your actions with what that person would be doing? And another point to that is, I think, and I started, when I first hired my first coach, I remember having this conversation of like where I'm at, where I want to be. And I felt like, you know, if you're imagining yourself driving across a drawbridge or like a long bridge, I imagine like, here I am in my car on this side. And like, it's so far away for me to get to where I want. And it felt so hard and so far. And like, it's going to take me 10 years. But that was also a story. That's a story that I made up to keep myself small and to keep myself safe. And then if we feel overwhelmed, we don't have to do anything. So it's starting to go, okay, how can I just make 1% progress today? Like driving across this bridge, how can I just start to make more progress? And then the key is recognizing myself for that progress, like actually celebrating it. Because what we have a tendency to do is, oh, I didn't do this, or by this time this year, I thought I would be here and I'm not. Well, things have happened and it's required us to shift in a whole different direction. So essentially, in some ways, we've kind of pivoted and maybe had to start over in some ways. So start to measure your success in a different way so that you feel successful along the journey, because 95% of our life is spent on the journey, right? Because as soon as we get there, we're like next, and we go on to the next thing. So we must find a way to make every single day, as we're working towards those big achievements, something that's fun, something that we celebrate, something that we want to show up for each day.
And I agree with that so much. And sometimes that adjustment can be difficult, but like you said, just making yourself feel like it's okay to make that. And then Melissa says, that's really heavy. You need to practice your potential. And yes, I totally agree with that, because I've always been that person who struggled with that imposter syndrome. Like the opportunity comes and I'm just like, yeah, but maybe I don't really deserve this. Like, you know, and you start double checking and, well, why did they ask me? And like, I don't know. And maybe I shouldn't. And like you said earlier with the
Enertuition. Yeah, I make up words a lot of the time.
Like, wait, let me get it right. But like, it is definitely, I've always been one who follows my gut. Like I've had times where I've had clients, and there's a reason why I do like a 15-minute consult before we get too deep, because not only is it for them to see if I'm the right fit for them, but sometimes they aren't necessarily a right fit for me. Like I know I can't fill whatever it is they're asking. And most times I can recommend somebody else, but I do follow that intuition, because sometimes you're just like, I don't know if this is going to work, or I don't know if I can actually do this or whatever. And so getting to that place where you allow yourself to not only follow your intuition, and I know you're Christian and you know what I'm saying when we say to follow your God tuition as well, because sometimes God is just like, nope, not yet, or wait on it for a little while longer, or not this person, or not that opportunity. And getting to that place where you trust that enough isn't always easy.
And I'm gonna give you an example. I actually just had this happen to me. I had somebody reach out for a partnership, and initially on the initial call, I was like, okay, this sounds good. And then I got sent this agreement and this document, and there was a red flag in my gut. And I was like, let me ask a few more questions, because this doesn't seem right? It just doesn't seem like it's a true partnership. And at least not in line with what my values are, right? Somebody else, it might have been a great partnership for. But I was like, oh, you know what? No, I'll do it. Like, and my thought at the time was, I've already gotten this far along. Like, I might as well just follow through with it. Right. And that's our thought all the time. And I've had 2 calls with 2 of my coaching friends, right? Because who you keep around you is really important. And I kept telling them, I'm like, well, what do you think about this? Like, I don't really want to do this. And now I've kind of committed. And I had a call with one of my coaching friends last night, and I couldn't even focus on the conversation with her because my gut was like, you need to cut this off. This thing, you need to cut it off now. Yes. And the bummer about it, which I just learned this lesson for myself today, is I didn't listen to my initial intuition. So that got me to the point where now I'm kind of the bad person because I pulled out of it really late, right? If I just would have said no in the beginning. But I also needed that lesson. Like, I needed that lesson and that pain of now, like, I look like the jerk to somebody else when I should have just said, this is not a good alignment for what I'm looking for in a partnership. And that was just what I was going through today. I was like, oh, I feel like a jerk, but I know it's the best call.
And I have totally been there. And you're just like, oh, I should have just said no the first time. But the thing is, sometimes when you're an entrepreneur and an opportunity comes, you just see it as that. It's an opportunity. But I had to learn the magic of the word no. And I was like, you know what? It's not a bad word. And like you said, sometimes it's not even that the person is a bad person or the opportunity is a bad opportunity. It's just, it doesn't fit with where I'm supposed to go right now. And I've had on my wall off and on for the past year or so that no that God said was for your good. Because sometimes you don't understand that. Sometimes when you get a no, or things that you certainly thought were going to work out don't work out, or you're forced into a pivot, you see it as more of a denial. And sometimes it's actually God trying to say that wasn't for you anyway. I had something else.
Yes.
If you would have went that route, you would have missed what I actually had prepared for you.
Yes.
So getting there, like I said, isn't always easy. But now I don't want to say I'm there, but I'm definitely closer to that point where when people come or when those opportunities come up, I kind of say, okay, let me think about it for a sec. And my think is prayer. And then I research as well. Like, I check that person out and what their history is, and does what they do actually fit in line with what I do and where I see myself going. And doing that, sometimes it does make you look like the bad person because they just expect you to say yes. But sometimes that no is so much more powerful, and you just have to do it.
Yes. And I like to use the analogy. I don't know if you've ever seen this meme, but it's like a little girl holding this little old ratty teddy bear, and it's like a tiny little teddy bear. And then there's a picture of Jesus right in front of her holding like this giant teddy bear behind her back.
Yes, I have seen it.
Yes. And above it, the little girl's like, but I love it. But I love it. But she doesn't know that there's more and better for her, but she has to trust and release and that little old ready teddy bear. And I've had that so many times in my life where, you know, I had to release my fitness business. And just to paint a picture too, because, you know, I come on here positive and you're always like, she's so positive, but it took me a long time to get here in terms of, there was nights 10 years ago when I was working at a job I knew I didn't love. And I actually was like, I know I'm not going to like this, but I'm just going to do it. And my mentality was like, I'll just do it for 2 years and then I'll just do something else for 2 years. And then I realized like those 2 years add up and there goes your life. So I would rather be doing something I'm fulfilled at than trying to check the box of what my degree is or what somebody thinks I should be doing. And back to my point, where was I going with this? My point about this is I know what it's like to be in that space of losing things. Like I I've been fired 3 times. I had to
release something.
Yes. And I was holding on to this relationship for 9 years that was dragging me down. And as soon as I let that go, that allowed for God to come in and do the work in me. But it was because I was holding on to that relationship. Oh, this is where I was getting to. And then I had my transformation. I determined I was going to go into life coaching. And then I had a total breakdown, ended up almost getting evicted from my apartment, shutting down my fitness business. My LLC was dissolved. I owed the IRS money, like all of that. And here I am coming out into the world going, and I'm a life coach. You should trust me, right? But part of that was severing me from that identity of fitness Camy. And I needed to go through that, what was painful, right? Life is going to be guaranteed pain, but suffering is a choice. And suffering is when we make up a story about what that means. So I could have made up a story of I'm a failure in business. Nobody's going to ever want to coach with me. I can't ever do this again. But what I took from that, and I decided to make that mean, was that was a piece of me that needed to go because that was holding me back. Same thing with that old relationship. So as God is pruning things from us, if we can release our grasp and start to trust, right? We are in this space of transition and trust. We start to trust that there is more coming for us. Then we can start to align with those nudges and start to follow and believe those trusts that just come up.
Definitely. And like you said, it's all about learning how to release. And the cool part about God is he's patient with us, and he'll, like that meme with Jesus standing, he'll wait for you to get there. But once you do learn that release, part of the release is when you let go, you make space for the other stuff.
Yes.
And one of my favorite scriptures, and I even did like a whole series on my blog at one point called 828 Blessings, because my favorite scripture is Romans 8:28. All things work together for good to them that love the Lord. And all includes even the bad. So in those moments where I feel like this is just going against me and, oh my God, nothing is going right, that's when I have to pause and I go, even in the bad, God is working out my good. So even as I'm going through this thing that seems like it might be the worst situation ever, God is still working out my good in the end of it. And all I have to do is make it to that end part. Yeah. And as entrepreneurs, and even in something like COVID, like right now we're in the heart of it and we might not be able to see our word clear to see that good, but somewhere in there, God is always trying to find our good. And I think learning how to release and learning how to make those spaces for the things to replace the negativity, the negative things, it's a process, but it's a process that's going to be worth the trouble for sure. For sure. And then even with you, like I said, when we met, you wanted stuff a certain way, and I loved your passion for it. And now I just want to show off your site a little bit because you went ahead. I remember, okay, you told me that you had a super long session on getting this site where it is.
Yeah, it was like 14 hours or something ridiculous, which I don't recommend, but I got it done.
Yeah, you got it done. But I remember when you told me, I was like, girl, you could have took a break. Like it did not have to be a 12-hour session. Yeah. But now look at the site. Like it's everything you told me you wanted to be and then some. And I'm so super proud of you for allowing yourself to just do it. I mean, basically like to just go out there and put yourself out there and get it done. And I love the fact that Camy is so awesome because even when like we're friends and stuff now, but even when I'm not working on like your projects or anything, you still give me like little updates. And Camy is so awesome because I do have to give her credit and a short shout out because when she said she needed an accountability partner, I didn't actually have that as part of my packages. It was just like, hey, you hire me for what you need. And then we move forward because I'm that person. I don't want people to see me as a crutch. So I always want to teach my clients so they can go on and do it themselves. And Camy was like, well, I need you to make a package where I can be accountable. And so you're the reason why I even have that like checkup package. And so thank you for that because surprisingly, and maybe not so surprisingly, a lot of people actually want that and need it. And I just didn't know. So thank you for that. But even though like we don't do it right now as often, she still sends me tidbits and I'm so super proud of you when I see it happen. Like I'm over here like, woo, yay, Camy. As I see your brand growing and I see your brand identity blossoming because your branding is on point right now. And you know, if it's kind of like, I don't say it to everybody, but your branding is on point. Your color schemes, your fonts, like everything is cohesive. And I'm so super proud of you. So I just want to give you that moment to let you know that you're doing something right and people are noticing. And it's not just me who notices.
Thank you. I love that. And, I think it's important too, in this time especially, but always, like, I reach out to you and give you testimonials because I know the power of having like a really great testimonial. And I remember sitting down on my Facebook page and I had like 11% reach or something. It was like back last year, like maybe in November, December. And then I sent you that post where I had like 327% growth or something. And I was like, that's pretty good, huh? Like, yeah, that's not bad. Yes. So I think it's so important, if you have a small business owner or you have somebody that you work with, like, give them a testimonial, because again, I believe everything is energy. And sometimes when we're sitting there and we're like, well, I don't have any clients or nobody's buying or whatever, that energy is so internal and it can just put us in like this vacuum of negativity. But when we go out, support others, give reviews, like tell them they're doing a good job, we get that reciprocated to us, right? Like, I didn't ask for that from you, but I also got that reciprocated back to me where you're like, well, you're doing a good job. And I'm like, well, thank you too, So I think it goes around, comes around, right? So I really believe what we put out is what we get back. And it's so easy to go inward and be so scared and be so concerned about finances and like trying to pinch every penny. But I also know that people can feel that energy. And I'm saying this is how I ran my fitness business into the ground. I had like, I made like 17 grand a year, which is not enough to like run your entire household, right? It was pretty good for like that was like my third year. And every year I like tripled my income, but it still wasn't enough to pay the bills, right? Which is why I was signing eviction notices. But my point is, the energy that I was always coming from when I was in fitness was like, people should tell more people about me, or I should get more referrals. Like, I should be entitled to somebody bringing me clients, right? And that's a really dangerous place to be when we think that somebody else is responsible for bringing us clients or referrals or any of that kind of stuff. So I have since gone through that painful process of transitioning my own energy. So when I feel afraid, when I feel fearful, I connect. I have a coach. I have coach friends. I get in community. I reach out to other people, encourage them. Because when it's not about us and we're not just looking at how am I going to pay the rent next month, we are expansive. And then as soon as we're expansive, we start to attract more of that stuff back to us.
Agreed. And I think that goes back to making space for other things too, because when you give out, you have more space to give back. And so it's definitely about reciprocating. And you're right. It can be really easy to beat yourself up and just be like, oh my God, why isn't this happening the way I think it is? And so when you do send me those updates, you like make my entire day. And if anyone is my client, you guys know I kind of stalk you guys, even though when we finish off our stuff, like I still watch and I'm very like observant of what you're doing. And I may even send a message like, hey, you might want to do this or whatever. Like, I'm very hands-on with all my clients, and I consider someone my client forever. Like, I always want to see them do better. So when I hear those updates and I see that what I said is being put into place or it's having an impact, it just gives you that assurance that, okay, I'm doing the right thing. Like, I'm on the right path, and it makes sense. Because sometimes you can have those moments where you start to question, like, okay, am I doing this? Was I supposed to do this? Why am I doing this? So thank you for being willing to put that energy out and then refueling me to give that energy to the next person. I think that's exactly what happens.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I wasn't always this way. So like, I love getting credit for how I am now because I'm my own testimony, and my clients' transformations are that testimony. But there were times where I was just not self-aware enough to understand that I was running my business into the ground, not because of how I was showing up, right? I was showing up confident. I was providing great service. But on the back end, on the internal stuff, I was always feeling like there wasn't enough. I was always feeling like there weren't enough clients. And that energy doesn't bring in more clients, right? It just, people can feel it. They know it. I like to think of the widow in the Bible who had like nothing, and she gave everything that she had, right? And we're always talking about that. And we're not called to be like, I'm not saying like give up your house and live on the street, right? I'm not saying that, but we're called to be generous givers. And when we give from what we have, we realize that we have enough. Like, we have enough, and we are going to be taken care of.
Exactly. And a lot of times where we feel that empty space, it's not even stuff that we need to fill it. You know what I mean? Like we're just trying to pack in stuff, and it might be something emotional that you need in there, or spiritual that needs to be there, but we're packing it with other stuff. And so realizing that that's not necessarily what the need is. And then I've also found when you focus on supporting and building others up, you kind of build yourself up at the same time. Like you start to feel better about whatever it is you're doing. So that's like so important. And I do want to touch on some of your collaborations, because the way you support other people is not just through your coaching or through your lives, which your lives are amazing. And I want to give you another little hand clap for that, because I know we were like, I was like, you need to do more lives. And now I see you like all the time. So I'm loving that as well.
And they're about to up level even more too. So just wait, they're about to up level. I got a big whiteboard, and I'm going to start teaching brain science. So get ready.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to need to tune in. See, I always catch you on like the replays. Like I'll just sit and listen, like especially the meditation ones with Prima Elements, which is one of the collaborations that you do. So just tell us how that relationship came to be.
Well, and first I want to talk about how I found you too, because I want to solve the mystery for everyone.
For me too, right?
Yeah, and for you. Yeah. So I am a proponent of visualization, intention setting, vision boards, all of that stuff, right? So when I was in Raleigh, I had this job. I moved in with my boyfriend here in Rayford. I was commuting an hour and 45 minutes one way, right? 5 days a week. And this was such a blessing for me that whole time period. I was doing that for about 4 months, because it gave me all that space, an hour and 45 minutes to do personal development, personal growth, right? So I knew I was manifesting being able to come down to Fayetteville and like have a job to support me before I started right back into my life coaching business. And I started looking at like Fayetteville bloggers. So I obviously, Tiffany Haywood pops up because she's all over the place. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to know her. I think I started following you. And that was also part of my trust of like, I'm going to be in Fayetteville. Like it's going to happen. And so that's how I first started following you. And then I just started checking out your stuff. And then I was like, oh, who do I need to connect with? Her. So I connected with you. That's how we connected. Same exact thing happened with Prima. So, well, a little bit different, but I was just feeling stressed, right? Because of that commute, because I didn't want to be at that job. And we get to that point where we've had faith long enough. We're like, okay, God, like I've been having faith, right? Hello.
Anytime now.
Right. And that's kind of where I was getting. But I also knew I'm responsible for my state while I'm waiting for what's coming. So I was like, I need something right now today. And it was a Monday night. And I went on Facebook and just like looked for activities. And there was a meditation. So I went. Jen is one of the other meditation teachers there. So I went, had a beautiful meditation with her, started chatting with her. And you know, when you meet somebody, you're just like, oh, we're best friends. So I was like, okay, we're best friends, Jen. Great. And then I started being like, well, hey, I do life coaching, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, why don't you just like come talk to the owner? And I was like, okay, fine. So that's essentially how it happened. I just sat down. I poured out. I said, this is what I'm all about. This is my vision. These are my values. And that is why it's so important to know your vision and values, because that's how you enroll people in what you're doing. And so I just sat down with her and was honest, because I was very clear with what I do. I'm like, I'm a life coach. I have this spiritual and scientific and Christian background, and I want to bring the community together. And she's like, well, why don't you just come start teaching meditation here? And why don't you start doing vision boards here? I was like, okay. And then that even turned into getting ABC 11 to come down from Raleigh and interview me inside of Prima. And that was another thing. I connected with that. That news anchor maybe 2 years. And I was like following her stuff. I liked her. So I was like building that relationship, knowing that like eventually we were going to be doing something together. And that manifested, I think, in January as well.
And that is so awesome. And like, honestly, when I met you, I probably never called it manifesting. Like I just had this idea, like for me, well, you know, I'm like very strong faith-based. And so for me, it was just like, if I believe it hard enough, it's going to happen. So like, I didn't put the word manifest to it, but like, I do the same thing when it came to like a lot of people. Melissa used to ask me like, how do you get work with brands or whatever? I would start following them, talking to them, engaging with them, because I knew where I wanted to be with them. And then it would just happen. And so I had no idea that was what happened with us.
Yes.
So that
was a little bit of stalking, a little bit of manifestation. And I want to address that word manifestation too, because meditation and manifestation are like trigger words typically, I find, in the Christian community.
Yeah, they kind of put a negative connotation.
Yeah. And I totally understand it. And I've been on this spiritual journey for the past 7 years. I used to do what I call pray crying into the Bible every single morning, which was just like, why, God, why? And that wasn't working for me. So I was like, okay, I understand why you should read the Bible. I understand scripture, but I wasn't integrating it into my life. So the way I see manifestation, a lot of times we'll just be like, well, if God wants me to, right? Oh, okay. And we'll just like throw it off on God. But you have to remember, we have a free will.
And we have a responsibility in it.
Yes. And we live on earth. So we have earthly consequences for our actions. So if we're like, hey, God, I'm going to murder this person, but please bless me. He's going to be like, that's not the way it works.
Maybe
right?
not.
Yeah. So, and that was an extreme example, but it's like, we need to be in alignment energetically again with the blessings that God wants to give us. He's ready right now. Who's not ready? It's us, right? Who's not ready? So it's taking that personal responsibility instead of just brushing it off on like, oh, I'll just wait on God. Well, I'll just wait to get healthy when God helps me get off the couch and walk, right? No, it's like
eat this hamburger and
right. Yeah. So that's the first thing on manifestation. It's aligning with what God is wanting to present to you. And then meditation is sitting in the presence of God and listening, like be still and know that I'm God. It's not pray cry to me for 15 hours about like your life and give me this and why not this and why me.
And also because it's supposed to be a relationship and like it can't be one-sided. Like it can't just be you spilling out your guts and then going, all right, I'll talk to you tomorrow and get up and leave. So
meditation to me is feeling that love of God within you without your own mental blockages coming up, right? And the way I used to view prayer was like very much me just talking and pretty much complaining. And now when I do meditation, what it does is it allows me to see me, and not in a selfish way, but it allows me to view how I'm limiting myself. God is limitless. He's expansive, right? He's in all of us. He guides us and he doesn't put limitations on us, right? Like we do. We say, no, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. No. Oh, you called me to this, but no, I'm not good enough. And so we get to listen to the thoughts. And then again, like I said in the beginning, start to disassociate from the thoughts and then reprogram the mind through scripture, through affirmations, through your truth, so that you can step into the world and actually take those aligned actions to those things that you feel that you're called to.
Yes, for sure. And like I said, I think the negativity that a lot of Christians do place on certain words is so unwarranted, because when you think about it, a lot of them still they're almost like the opposite side of what we do as Christians anyway. When I was growing up, we used to have all night prayer services, and we literally just sat in the pew and you just kind of meditated on God. And so, but nobody would call it meditation. They didn't want to say it that way, but that's exactly what we were doing. We would just sit and someone would play like slow, low music, and you just kind of focused in on God and waited to hear back what he had to say. That's literally meditation. But I didn't understand that until I got older and was able to disconnect from all the negative stuff that people were trying to make me feel it brought. And I'm like, so we were meditating all that time and nobody, it was like, it is not a bad thing. And it actually helps you to be able to listen and to be able to hear God's voice clearer. Because like you said, when you pray cry and you're just spouting out all your wants, desires, needs, frustrations, where is the communication? And any relationship is built on communication, including the one we have with God. And if you're not there to listen to him as well, whether it be through his voice, an audible voice in prayer, or even through his voice, through his word in the Bible, you still need to be able to have that moment where you stop, pause, and listen. And so I'm all about meditation now. Like I tell you, I watch your stuff on replay. When I have those days where I'm just like, I'm like, okay, let me go scroll and find one of Camy's like meditation things so I can just like get a little bit more. So I do thank you for that. And I love your collaborations with Prima Elements. And just let us know like what you have coming up, whether it's with Prima. You can feel free to say whatever you want about your retreat, the online classes, everything that's coming up. Let everybody get a chance to know what you have happening.
Yes. So, and thank you for this opportunity too, because this is just really cool to be like, yeah, I was stalking Tiffany like a year ago. And now look at us.
Speaking of which, hold on, Melissa actually says that. She was like,
I saw her comment.
Yeah, she's like stalking. I guess that's what she did to become one of your clients too.
Yeah. And
then she goes, yeah, Tiffany is all over the place. Yeah, I kind of am. But in a good way, not like scattered, just like Very.
You can find her easily, right? You're just like, who do I need to connect with in Fayetteville? Well, the one that has the most hashtags. Okay, there she is. Yes. So I've been feeling really led and very, I'm listening to my intuition more, right? And that's like one of the biggest things that I got from this time is like just trusting myself more instead of always questioning, is this the right thing, right? And we have those tendencies, being a recovering perfectionist, I have those tendencies to go back and be like, let me do it the right way. Let me do it the way so-and-so told me. But really it's like, we all have our unique gifts and qualities. So we are all going to run our businesses in a certain way that's unique to us. And that is okay. And trusting that. So I am launching a mastermind, and it's actually going to be called an academy. It's going to be a 6-month academy. And then you can go month to month after that. But I got this idea. And again, I was about to launch this mastermind again at the beginning of all of this stuff. And I pulled back because I was like, this is not the time where people are ready to go like deep into this. But essentially what it is going to be is reading personal development books, having accountability within a small group of women who are all looking to up level. So I'm transitioning that. That will be happening in June. I also transitioned and opened up a brand new Facebook called Powerful Potential, which is completely free. It's a Facebook group. And the purpose there is for recovering perfectionists to have a place to show up and practice. So maybe you want to practice a Facebook Live. Maybe you want to show up and be like, hey, I really want to start to learn how to do hip hop dancing or something. Like Tiffany, you and I are now becoming dancers.
I'm still waiting for your video.
I know. And I'm still waiting for the tutorial. Maybe that's what I missed. I need to get the tutorial. Okay.
I'm going to send that to you.
It needs to be slowed down for me. And I will 100% do it. But I was like, she posted hers and I was already like, hold on, I forgot it already. So I will be posting it. And you can hold me accountable for that. So that academy will be opening in June. The Facebook group is free, but what I'm really excited about in the Facebook group is I will be bringing on guests, and I already have been bringing on guests from all of my travels. So I have a lot of friends and colleagues and life coaches in Australia, New Zealand, Bali. So I just interviewed my friend Sarah from Bali, and she's the one that actually taught me that energy technique that we did. So I gave her full credit for that energy technique that we did in January. So all of that is free within my Facebook group. And then I'm always, well, I won't want to say always, but right now I have spots for 3 one-on-one clients. And one-on-one clients is essentially somebody who wants to transform and they're ready to step into the work and see huge changes in their life. And I do want to call out Melissa right now because I first met her in January and she was overcoming her anxiety to come over to Fayetteville. She had to drive. And then she put it on her vision that she wants to be a speaker. And now with your help too, because you gave her StreamYard, she's now doing Facebook Lives every week. So much is possible for you when you say yes to yourself and invest, and you have somebody in your corner who believes in you when you're still working on developing that belief in yourself.
Perfect. And so you have that coming up. And what can people, are you still doing? I think you do your meditations on Prima on Tuesdays,
so
right?
We're like transitioning back into being in person at Prima.
Yes, I did see that.
Yes.
She's doing a whole renovation, right?
Yes. So they're taking out some stuff. They're basically creating bigger space to do yoga, right? They're going to be doing lots more yoga and obviously meditation. They have a whole, I mean, they're all about healing. So they have so many healing modalities there. So I believe I will be coming in the first week of June and I will have a nighttime class to do meditation at Prima Live. So that is tentative because we haven't made that announcement yet, but I want people to at least follow the page, get those updates to know when that meditation class is coming back live. And I'm sure we will be planning some retreats. I do want to do an in-person retreat. And when I do them, they're small and intimate anyway. So they're typically already under 10 people because I want that community of women to be very tight-knit. So it's a safe space to share. So there is potential that I will do another small retreat in the fall or maybe in the spring. So I'm going to leave myself open to that.
Well, guys, you do know that you need to follow Camy so that you can stay in line with everything that is going to be happening. I'm scrolling Prima Elements Facebook page right now below. So make sure you follow there to know when her classes are coming up and when you guys can connect with her in person, which is going to be awesome. Because when I tell you her energy is contagious, I am speaking the ultimate truth. Like, she's just freaking awesome. Also, make sure you follow her on Facebook. She is official Camy Kennedy on Facebook. And if you type in Camy Kennedy Coach, you will find her as well. And then don't forget to follow her over on Instagram for her super bright, fun, energetic Instagram pages, because she always brightens my day when I see her posts. It's just like, she's just kind of fun. And then, of course, you can learn more about her and what she does and what's coming up and what's ahead at CamyKennedy.com. Take a look at her awesome website. It is so cool, and I'm so proud of her for everything she's done on it. And if you have already worked with her, like our friend Melissa, make sure you drop her a review on her Facebook page so that others can know what you think about how she's helped you and the value of what she does. Camy, thank you again so much for being a part of today. I'm so super excited that I got the chance to chat with you.
Thank you so much. I'm giving you a virtual hug. I was like, let's hug now.
Air hugs all the way around. Like, I think that's something I miss, which is kind of funny because I was not a hugger, but now I miss it so much.
Yep, I totally was just talking about that today.
Definitely air hugs to you. Air hugs to the entire audience, everybody who's watching. Guys, you can replay this video. Make sure you share it. Tell people that I will be here next Saturday. I had heard back from someone where I'm not going to announce her because I want to wait until I confirm it completely, but we may have a really super fun thing next week happening. It will probably be at the 6 p.m. hour because I also have something else really cool happening Saturday during the day. So you guys stay tuned because I'm going to start sharing about that soon. And it's going to be in Fayetteville, and it's just going to be stinking cool. So make sure you follow so that I can tell you what that is. Camy, I have sent you the link to that instructional video, so I expect to see you get that COVID pivot on soon, or rather than later. And guys, thank you again for tuning in, and I cannot wait to have another chat with you on the next edition of Adjust and Adapt. See you guys next week.